Good morning and welcome to our session for the English language. Hi Rajashekar. I was waiting for some more people to join, but we can get started. Thanks for taking the time to be here this morning. So I don't think I saw you in a couple of earlier sessions, but nevertheless, we are looking at Spot the Error, and today would be our last session for Spot the Error. So those of them who will join later, they can just join as and when, but we'll get started. So for the most part, so far Rajashekar, if you've missed the previous sessions, just to update you, we have been looking at all the 23 or odd error types that are already there listed. That are already there listed in the portal, in the video library, right? So we're specifically looking at understanding how to identify these errors, right? If I look at a sentence, how do I know that this sentence has an error pertaining to, for example, the error type as parallelism, or how do I know that this question has an error type pertaining to dangling modifier, right? So things like that. So it's important for us to not just be aware of the possible errors, but the objective being that we should be able to identify these errors quickly because of our awareness. Because we have knowledge on all these error types, it should make our job easier in identifying the error as soon as we look at a sentence, right? So in continuation with the last session where we looked at the last 9 error types, we're going to continue focusing on that because one, we did not have time to review as many questions that we wanted to on those error types. So we didn't have time to review as many questions as we wanted to, in those error types. So we're going to take a look at that. Let's see. I don't know if you've been able to watch that video of the previous session's video. If not, it's okay. I mean, this session would act more as a refresher on those last 9 error types. But if you haven't watched it, then let's see if you're able to identify those error types or not. Yeah. So let me start with the projecting the PPT and we'll get started. Okay, so this is our first question. Monisha was to about tell her teacher the truth when her friend interrupted her. Okay, so this is the question. You can obviously identify which part you think has the error. I'll give you about 10-15 seconds. So have you been able to identify the error? Pretty simple. As soon as we read it, we know that there's something funny or awkward in part A, right? Manisha was to about. That doesn't make sense there, right? In just terms of ordering of these words in the sentence. So all I have to do is the error is in part A. And not part B actually. If I interchange, Monisha was about to do something. What is that? To tell her teacher. Right? So all I have to do is just interchange this, right? So about comes before to. and not the other way around. So Monisha was about, and if the sentence construction is like that, someone was about to do something, and in our context it is she wanted to tell her teacher the truth when her friend interrupted her at that time, right? So this is an error pertaining to word order. Nothing is wrong with part B. Was about to tell her teacher, right? So here tell brings in the meaning of she wants to inform her teacher. You know what? I know the truth. Let me tell you what it is. It's always tell the truth, no? Even the phrase, sometimes you will hear people say the truth, which is incorrect, right? Tell the truth. You tell lies, you tell the truth. You don't say lies, you don't say the truth. Incorrect word choice. Say and tell, difference between say and tell. Keep that in mind. That's another, you could even get an error around that, right? In terms of vocabulary, the right word choice. Let's move on. Let's look at our next question. I guess they figured the land worth wasn't as much as they thought. I guess they figured the land worth wasn't as much as they thought. Where do you think the error is? Okay, so if you actually notice, just a second. Yeah, sorry. I guess you're struggling to figure out the answer here. Actually, I guess they figured, what is the context meaning? The context meaning is, they thought that the land, the price of the land, right, was worth this much, but it actually wasn't. The reality is it was completely contradicting what they believed it to be, right? That's the context meaning. I guess they figured the land wasn't. Again, it's a word order error, right? The error is in part B. The land, subject, and then the auxiliary word, helping word, right? We know this is a B form, is, are, was, were, right? And we're looking at the negative form of was, which is was not, that is contracted, na? Wasn't, right? So I guess they figured the land, subject, wasn't worth as much as they. So all you have to do is, again, rearrange the word order. Errors pertaining to word order. Yeah, let's look at the next one. Because the man doesn't make a priority his wife, she often feels neglected and alone. This one should be an easy one. As you read it, you should be able to figure out, where the error is. Are you able to? Okay, so you are saying B again for this one, and that would be correct, right? Because if you look at it, what is the change that you will make, Rajashekar, you want to try? What will you change in B? Can you tell me what changes will you make in part B? Priority after preposition will come. There is, see, in part B actually there is no preposition, no? If you look at it, I have make, which is the verb, a priority, which is a noun phrase, right? The indefinite article talking about the priority, which is a noun, and his wife, as in the man's wife, possession. Possessive pronoun, his is the possessive pronoun, wife is the object, right? So in this, yes, you're right when you say the error is in part B, no doubt. But again, this is an error pertaining to word order. Make who a priority? Make his wife a priority. All you're doing is interchanging this again. Okay? So because the man doesn't make his wife a priority, she often feels neglected and alone. Again, this is an error pertaining to word order. So do you understand, in a sentence, when it comes to word order, construction is very, very important. Right? You have the subject, right? You have the action. See, even in this construction, if you look at it, the man, he is the subject. Doesn't make, right? This is the helping verb. Remember, helping verbs are not only be forms which we looked at earlier. It is also do and have, right? Which is did, does, had, has, henna. So if I'm saying, obviously here it is the negative form, does plus not, doesn't. So this is a helping verb, right? Doesn't make is the main verb. So I have the subject, I have the helping verb, then I have the main verb. Sometimes there may not be a helping verb, henna, right? Then what? Object. Object is the priority. Object is his wife. A priority is just in this context, a priority is what? The man doesn't make his wife a priority. In fact, his wife a priority is again more of a compliment, completing the meaning of the context, right? The man doesn't make his wife what? A priority. Again, priority again would be an object. Right, his wife becomes the indirect object, a priority becomes the direct object. The man doesn't make what? A priority. Whom? His wife. Got it? So his wife is in fact the indirect object, answering the question whom, and answering the question what is the direct object. Are you following? So in terms of a sentence construction, this is the basic sentence construction. Subject, helping verb, main verb. There can be an indirect object, need not necessarily always be the case, but the construction is this. I have a subject, I have a verb, I have an object, right? Everything else is, I can add stuff like helping verb here, right? I can add an indirect object here before the direct object. I can have a complement at the end, some more, extra information just to complete the meaning of the sentence. It can be a prepositional phrase, whatever, right? So as long as I am familiar with my basic form of a sentence construction, it will be easy for me to identify errors pertaining to word order. That's what I wanted to highlight. Okay, so all these three things that we've looked at is pertaining to word order errors. Okay, see, even here the land subject wasn't is my helping verb. Okay, let's move on to our next question type. It was so lovely weather that we spent the whole day in the garden. So where do you think the error is in this one? It was so lovely weather that we spent the whole day in the garden. According to you, which part do you think has the error? Okay, so just to highlight, let's look at part A. Okay, it was so lovely weather. I know in this phrase weather is my noun. Now just because lovely ends with ly doesn't mean it's an adverb. It's actually a adjective describing the weather. What sort of a weather? Lovely weather. So here lovely is an adjective. So let's bring that. So you think there is no error, but there is an error. Okay, so let's see where the error is. So ideally in this context, so is an incorrect word to emphasize that, right? Here so is acting as an intensifier. What is an intensifier? Something that emphasizes. It is added for emphasis, right? So if I say, I can say, let's say you're having tea, right? You go to somebody's house, they offer you tea, and then you can say this tea is good. But if you want to emphasize, you can say the tea is so good, right? So I know so is used as an intensifier to bring in the meaning of emphasis. But here in our context, so is not the right intensifier to bring an emphasis of the lovely weather. What is the word that I have to replace so with? Such. Such would be it was such lovely weather. So why should I replace so with such? Because such is used to emphasize the adjective in a noun phrase. So basically this is a noun phrase. Which one? Lovely weather. Where weather is my noun and lovely is my adjective describing the noun. So in this noun phrase, the right intensifier would be such and not so. Right? Let's look at another example. So I can say he is such a nice man. Right? So this is the noun phrase. I have the indefinite article, I have nice which is the adjective, and I have man which is the noun. So this is a noun phrase, right? So before a noun phrase, if you want to bring in emphasis, the right intensifier would be such and not so. We don't say he's so a nice man. Incorrect. He's such a nice man. Correct. Likewise, it was such lovely weather, not so lovely weather. Are you following? But at the same time, you also need to understand, this is when we are talking about a noun phrase, okay? But of course, you can use so to emphasize an adjective. Like you can say, for example, I've been so busy. Right? So in this context, there's no noun phrase as such. I'm just adding so to emphasize this busyness, which is the adjective, right? Describing something that I am. I've been so busy. Or these games are so boring. So boring is my adjective describing the games. I'm still using so here to intensify. It's like saying it's so cold. The weather is cold, right? Cold is an adjective describing the weather. So I can say it's so cold or I'm feeling so cold, right? So I can still use so to bring in emphasis of only adjective. But if it's a noun phrase, right? I have a noun, I can have an adjective, and usually a noun phrase starts with an article, right? A definite or an indefinite article. And then I use such. That's a slight difference. I want you to remember this. Yeah? So the only difference between so and such is I can use so to bring an emphasis and put it before an adjective, like these examples that we just saw. I've been so busy and these games are so boring. However, when there is a noun phrase in front of a noun, don't use so but use such, right? So I can say I feel so cold, but the same thing, it's such a cold day. Are you following the difference? Do you see the difference? I feel so cold. Cold is the adjective. I have put so, bringing an emphasis of the adjective. But in the next sentence, I'm saying it's such a cold day. Why? Because a cold day is a noun phrase. है ना? Indefinite article, adjective, day, noun. Are you following? right? Just to clarify this, let's quickly, I'm going to put on additional example sentences, but I want you to understand the context difference between so and such. Very, very important. You will have errors pertaining to this. These are nothing but intensifiers which bring in emphasis. Okay, so I'm just going to clear this, Rajashekar, just to highlight the differences quickly. We'll look at some more example sentences. So I can say, she was so nice. She was such a nice girl. The children seemed so happy. She seemed such a happy woman. I hope you are following the difference. So nice, adjective. Such a nice girl, noun phrase. So happy, adjective. Such a happy woman, noun phrase. Okay? And that's why our error is in part A. We replace so with such. Yeah? I hope this is clear. So any errors pertaining to intensifiers to do with so and such, you should be able to quickly spot. Let's look at the next one. This can be so a gradual process that you are not aware of it happening. This should be an easy one since we have spent so much time understanding the basic difference between so and such. Where is the error? So you say C. Why C? What is wrong with C? So it says this can be so a gradual process that you are not aware of it happening. But if you look closely, right, we've spent so much considerable time understanding this whole difference between so and such. So the first error that you will identify is obviously in part A, na? A gradual process, which is my noun phrase. And we just said that so will not come before a noun phrase. It will only be such. Yeah? Because I have my definite article, I have my adjective gradual, and I have my noun process. Hai na? Yeah? So this is my noun phrase. So error is in part A and not C. Change so to such. Not aware of it happening is absolutely fine, no problem. I'm not aware that something is happening in the cafeteria right now. Correct sentence, no? There's nothing wrong with happening. Which means it's just talking about something that is happening currently, ongoing. The action is continuous right now. Hai na? Yeah? So, let's look at the next one. Such candidates who have not cleared the written test will not be called for the interview. So in this question, if you notice, right, we are talking about, we're specifically addressing a particular group of candidates who have not cleared the written test, and some action is going to be taken. Obviously, you know, if you don't clear the written test, you will not be called for the interview. But I don't need such, right, because we are not emphasizing here, we are distinguishing, we are determining, right. So the right determiner, so this is an incorrect intensifier here. I need to replace such with those, right. It's an incorrect intensifier here. I need those instead of such, because we are, the meaning is I am distinguishing or determining the candidates, distinguishing the candidates who have not cleared the test, right. And what action is going to be taken for those candidates, है ना. So replace such with those. The error is in part A. So we need to also be able to identify when an intensifier is used incorrectly in a context, right. What is the context? Is the context meaning emphasizing something, or is the context determining or distinguishing something? Accordingly, I have to use the right determiner or right word. Yeah. So far good. Let's move on. The present day industrial trend is in the direction of automation and less people. The present day industrial trend is in the direction of automation and less people. Where do you think the error is? So you're saying in present days. Okay. No, let's look at the context. Yeah, the context is very clearly saying what the present day trend is, right? So as far as construction goes, there's absolutely nothing wrong in it. I don't have to say in present days the industrial trend is in the direction of, not required. The present day industrial trend, which means what is currently happening right now, it brings in the same meaning. So I don't need to change that there, right? The present day situation, or the present day crisis, or the present day issue, right? You have sentences starting like that, which is focusing on what exactly is happening right now in these times. That's the meaning it's bringing in, right? So you don't have to change that. So the present day industrial trend is in the direction of automation, and my error in fact is in part D. Why so? Because I have people here, right? When will I use less? When I'm referring to something as a bulk or a mass. But when I'm talking about persons and things that can be counted, like people, right? I will use fewer, not less. Okay, so the error is in part D. We need to replace less with fewer. What errors are these? These are errors pertaining to quantifiers, right? Something that quantifies, like a number, right? And in this context, we're talking about people here. So the present day industrial trend is in the direction of automation and fewer people, not less people. We will look at some more example sentences pertaining to errors that revolve around quantifier as an error type. Let's look at this one. Though you may not agree with the philosophy of Rajneesh, you must admit that he had tremendous influence over a great much followers. Where do you think the error is? I'm going to give you about 15 seconds again. Figure out where the error is. So, are you able to identify? Let's look at the context. Though you may not agree with the philosophy of Rajneesh, you must admit that he had tremendous influence over a great, again, we are looking at followers, right? Which means they are countable. And you don't use much, you use many. A great many is in fact a collocation, right? This phrase we've heard people say that. The error is in part D, where you change much to many. Right? Because countable. How much money do you have? We don't say how many money do you have, right? But we do say how many rupees do you have. Why? Because I can count rupees. Right? People always get confused. Money is uncountable, rupees is countable. Hai na? Yeah? So, whenever there is a quantifying where I can count, right? Many, fewer, and less than much is used for bulk. How much salt did you put? Right? Salt is uncountable. I don't say how many salt did you put. Incorrect. How much salt did you put in this dish, in this menu? Are you following? Yeah? Much, many, difference. So, here we need many and not much. Again, this is an error pertaining to quantifier. Right? Let's look at the next one. Because of the recent strike in the mills, less men will be recruited in the coming season. This should be easy. Now that we have, just gone ahead and understood the difference between fewer, less, much, many. Where do you think the error is in this one? Yes. So, basically you change less to fewer, right? Fewer men. Why? Because we are talking about number. Anything that denotes number, you will use fewer. Yeah? Fewer men. will be recruited. Yeah. So remember this, less will always denote amount or degree. Fewer will always denote number. Anything that can be counted. Good. Let's look at this. They had to face many trouble during their journey to West Bengal. They had to face many trouble during their journey to West Bengal. Where do you think the error is? You say B, why so? Well, you would be correct. The error is in part B. But what do we need to change? Here, trouble here is uncountable, right? It's kind of tricky because trouble can be countable as well as uncountable. You know, you can have more than one trouble, troubles, right? Plural noun number. In that case, it becomes countable. But in the context, and generally, trouble is an uncountable noun. So, I can't use many, no, for uncountable. I have to use much. So, I need to replace many with much. Yeah. So, it's a tricky word, this trouble. Depending on the context meaning, it can either take up a countable or an uncountable meaning. Are you following? But generally, note that trouble is uncountable, right? For example, I can say, I have had nothing but trouble, right? In this context, it's uncountable. But the same trouble, I can also use it, it can also give the meaning of countable. For example, I can say, the troubles only seemed to get worse. Yeah, the troubles only seem to get worse. More than one trouble. So here, it comes across as a countable noun. I can count the number of troubles that this person went through. Are you following? Even if I say the trouble only seem to get worse, it can still be counted as uncountable. So it takes up both that meaning. Yeah, the trouble only seemed to get worse, countable as well as uncountable, just to give you an idea. But either ways, depending on the context, you have to figure out if, usually as a general standard, you can go with trouble being uncountable and use the correct quantifier before that. So in this context, they had to face much trouble during their journey to West Bengal. Let's look at the next one. Many people in Bangladesh don't scarcely know about the hardships that the Chakma refugees are experiencing. Where is the error? So having looked at this context, many people in Bangladesh don't scarcely know about the hardships that the Chakma refugees are experiencing. So as soon as you look at this, right, if you're paying attention, you know that the error is in part B. Why so? I'm saying the error is in part B. Can you spot why part B something is wrong? Because scarcely itself means what? Hardly. Right? Many people in Bangladesh scarcely know about the hardships. Barely. Right? That's the meaning that scarcely brings in, right? Which is already negative in meaning. So which means what is not required there? Don't. Right? Double negatives. Are you with me? Double negatives, something that we need to avoid, right? So, because scarcely itself brings in, a negative meaning, which is, talking about almost not, or hardly, or barely, or only just, right? So, many people in Bangladesh, I don't need this don't. We have to omit don't. Now, these kind of errors, I would say it kind of wavers between superfluous and double negatives, right? I don't need this don't here because already scarcely is bringing in the meaning of, bringing in that negative meaning. So many people in Bangladesh scarcely know about the hardships that the Chakma refugees are experiencing. Not don't scarcely, double negatives. Yeah? We will categorize, them in under double negatives because it's very, very obvious. Both are giving me negative meaning. I don't need that. Let's see if you are able to identify the next one. He hesitated to accept the past as he did not think the salary would not be enough for a man with a family of 10. Have you been able to identify which part has the error here? Correct. Let's look at it. He hesitated to accept the past as he did not think the salary would not be enough for a man with a family of 10. Are you able to understand the context? There are just too many negative meanings unnecessarily, right? Because it already says in part B, he did not think the salary. Again, why do I need this not here in part C? Doesn't make sense, no? If I delete that, then the meaning is correct. He hesitated to accept the past. Why? As he did not think the salary would be enough. Not would not be enough. Because here already I have did not think. Are you following? So the error is in part C. So these can be a little confusing if you're not paying attention. You need to delete not. Why? Because I already have that meaning coming in part B. He did not think the salary would be enough for a man with a family of 10. That makes sense. Yeah? So these are all errors pertaining to double negatives. Bringing in, I already have a negative meaning coming in a part, and then I again have an unnecessary word so which means you need to look out for this not, right, in a context, and see if there's already a negative meaning coming in the sentence. Let's do one more. She denied that she did not commit the crime. She denied that she did not commit the crime. Where do you think the error is? Easy one, part B, है ना? Again, I don't need not after did because denied itself means what? that she's not accepting that she did the crime. है ना? So because denied is saying not accepting that she did commit the crime, right? Denied is a negative word, yeah, no problem. It's already bringing in negative meaning. So which means I don't need this not again in part B. So the error is in part B, where I need to delete not. Following? So these are all errors pertaining to double negatives. Yeah, let's move on. You work in a bank, didn't you? As soon as I see this, I know the concept is question tags. I just need to make sure that with all the knowledge that I have on question tags, I need to make sure there are some basic rules, right, when it comes to question tags. I mean, if the statement is positive, then the tag has to be negative. If the statement is negative, the tag has to be positive. This is the basic rule of, cornerstone rule of question tags. But there are other rules as well. We will look at it. But for this one, let's see if you're able to identify it. You work in a bank. So that's a positive statement. So you're saying do you. But remember, Raja, you work in a bank is a positive statement, na? Yes? Which means the tag has to be negative, which is this. Yes, exactly, right? I need don't you, not didn't you. Because why? It's not in past tense. The sentence is in present tense. You need to keep that also in mind. So didn't you worked, if it was ed here, then didn't you will make sense. But it's not in ed, right? It's simple present tense, so don't you. Yeah? You work in a bank, don't you? You work in a bank, don't you? Got it? So basically, if the this is the cornerstone rule, right? If the main part of the sentence is positive, the question tag is negative. If the main part of the sentence is negative, the question tag is positive. Let's look at, that one of those constructions as well. So if I have, you don't recognize me. Can you complete this for me? What will you put here? You don't recognize me. Can you complete the tag for me? Yes, do you. That's it. Right? There you go. So we've covered the cornerstone rule, which is what? Let's put it down here. Main part of the sentence is positive. I need negative question tag. Right? Main part of the sentence is negative. I need positive question tag. Right? Perfect. We know this. This should register. This is the basic rule. Let's look at the next one. They've gone away for a few days, haven't them? They've gone away for a few days, haven't them? Have you been able to identify where the error is? Haven't they? Yes, absolutely right. The error is in part D. Another thing that we constantly have to keep in mind is whatever the subject is, the same thing only has to repeat in the tag as well, right? So it will be haven't they and not haven't them. Correct. Let's move on. They couldn't hear me, did they? They couldn't hear me, did they? They couldn't hear me, did they? Yes, absolutely. The error is in part C. Why? Because we need to change. We need to use the. If there is a modal verb, the rule is if there is a modal verb in the main part of the sentence, the question tag also will use the same modal verb. Yeah. So it will be, they couldn't hear me, could they? Exactly. Keeping in mind because the main statement is negative, the tag is positive. Let's look at one more. I'm the fastest, am I not? I'm the fastest, am I not? Yes, absolutely. The error is in part B. And why so? Because we know that with sentences that start with I am, right? In question tags, let's be specific. In question tags, sentences that start with I am, the tag is aren't I. Yeah? So, I'm honest, aren't I? I'm pretty, aren't I? Right? Let's look at the last one. She eats meat, isn't she? She eats meat, isn't she? Yes, absolutely. The error is in part B, right? Because why are we using doesn't here? Because there is no auxiliary verb, no, in the main part of the sentence. So let's put down the rule. If the main part of the sentence doesn't have an auxiliary verb, the question tag uses an appropriate form of do, whether did or does accordingly. And in our context, it is she eats meat. Does she not becomes doesn't she, like you have rightly pointed out. Yeah. So this shows that you're very thorough with your question tag concepts, at least, which is good, right? So any errors pertaining to question tags, you should be able to identify them quickly. Let's move on to our next question error type. She wore a dress to the party that was far more attractive than the other girls. She wore a dress to the party that was far more attractive than the other girls. Where do you think the error is? More, most, but where is, okay, but there is no need for the superlative form most here, right? Because if you look at the context, there is comparison happening between her dress and the dress of the other girls. It's a comparative degree that is needed, and more is rightly so, it brings in that meaning, right? More attractive. But where the error is in part D. And what is that error? To bring in more clarity, like we said, the comparison is between the dress that was attractive. So the comparison is between her dress and the dress of those other girls, not her dress and the other girls. If you look at part D, it says then the other girls, which is incorrect. No? We are not comparing the dress to the girls. We are comparing the dress to the dress of the other girls. So I need to bring in or add something in part D to bring in that clarity. So she wore a dress to the party that was far more attractive than those of the other girls. Where those brings in clarity, saying, hey, we are comparing the dresses and not the girls. Are you following? So this is an error pertaining to dangling modifier. What's a dangling modifier? Where I have a word missing in the context, and whatever it is that I'm trying to compare, right, is not complete. As in there's incorrect comparison happening. So in the context, if you see, actually the context is bringing the meaning as though they are comparing her dress to the other girls. Incorrect. They are comparing her dress to the dresses of the other girls. Yeah, and that when we add that those in part D, then we understand the meaning, right? So this she wore a dress to the party that was far more attractive than those of the other girls. Got it? Let's look at a couple of more with this particular error type, which is dangling modifier. A lot of them overlook this. First of all, they're not aware that there can be an error like this. Now that you're aware, you need to just look out for this error. The standard of living in India is still lower than most of the other developed countries. Same concept. Let me see if you're able to identify the error, and if you have identified the error, what will you add to complete meaning? Okay, let's attack this question. The standard of, here again, what is compared? The standard is what is compared, right? We are not comparing the standard of living in India to the other developed countries. We are comparing the standard of living in India to the standard of living in the other countries, which means again the error is in part, sorry about that, the error is in part D, where we add then that of, not sorry, not part D, part C. Then that of most of the other developed countries, right? So that brings in that we are comparing the standard of living in India to the standard of living in the developed countries. Standard of living is what is compared. Are you following? So the standard of living in India is still lower than that of the standard of living of most of the other developed countries. There we go. Error is in part C. Let's look at a couple of more till you get the hang of this. Have you read in the Hindustan Times that Kapil Dev's shoulder was broken while playing the final test against Pakistan? Where do you think the error is? Okay, so let's look at this question. Have you read in the Hindustan Times that Kapil Dev's shoulder was broken while playing? Who was playing? He was playing, right? Otherwise, it looks like the shoulder was playing the final test against Pakistan. So, where is the error? The error is in part C, where what I need to do is I need to add shoulder was broken while he was playing, bringing in the impression that Kapil was the one who was playing and not his shoulder. Yeah, very, very easy to overlook this sort of an error. So we need to be very careful. Yeah, are you following? There you go. Otherwise, it gives the impression that shoulder was playing. Let's look at a couple of more. A recent poll has indicated that Binny is considered brighter than any student in the class. A recent poll has indicated that Binny is considered brighter than any student in the class. Where is the error? Okay, so when you look at this context, a recent poll has indicated that Binny is considered brighter than any other student, right? So the error is in part C, where I add any other student. The comparison is happening with Binny to other students. So that clarity has to come in part C. So all these sort of errors that we've looked at so far are errors pertaining to dangling modifiers. What is a dangling modifier? If you are not familiar with that, go check out the video in under basic grammar for reference. It's available. Basically, where I'm saying is something that has to be modified, right? There is a word missing. So that's why that part or that sentence is incomplete without that word, right? If you looked at all the 4 examples that we looked at, we had to add one word to bring in clarity, to complete meaning. Otherwise, it was misleading. It was giving us some other information, right? Some other meaning. Let's look at our next error type. Yesterday, I suddenly came across my friends. Yesterday, I suddenly came across my friends. Where is the error? Or is there any error at all? So you're saying C, but why? Yesterday I suddenly came across my friends. See, to come across your friends, matlab come across is the phrasal verb which brings in the meaning of, I bumped into them, right? So in that context, already come across it itself means by chance, accident, it was not a planned event, right? I just happened to bump into my friends. That's the meaning that the context is giving. So why do I need that suddenly in part B, right? That is an unnecessary word there. Error is in part B where I delete suddenly because came across itself means by chance, accidentally. That is a phrasal verb, right? To come across somebody means by chance you happen to meet them, which obviously happens suddenly only, right? It's not a planned event. Not in front of my friends. See, that is why it is important for you to pay attention to that phrasal verb. To come across someone or something means by chance it happened. It wasn't a planned thing, right? It was an accident. So accidentally when I was cleaning my cupboard, I came across, an old photo of mine. Yeah. Are you following? Let's look at a couple of more contexts. So this is an error pertaining to what? Superfluous meaning. I don't need that word there in that context suddenly. It's an unnecessary word. It's bringing in the same meaning. So superfluous, out, I don't need this suddenly. I am a man of good principles and my first principle is flexibility. Where do you think the error is? I am a man of good principles and my first principle is flexibility. Sorry, I thought I was showing the PPT. I am a man of good principles and my first principle is flexibility. So if you look at this context, right, when I say principles itself means what? In this context, what is the meaning of principles? Which is talking about a moral rule or standard of good behavior, right? It's understood. Like you would have heard the phrase, a man of principles. Which itself means what? A man of moral standard, good behavior. Which means what is redundant in meaning, what is superfluous in meaning, what is not necessary? Good in part B. The error is in part B, because when you say a man of principles itself means somebody who has a standard of good behavior, somebody who has a moral rule of good behavior, right? So which means I don't need that word good, which is very redundant in meaning, repetitive in meaning, superfluous in nature. Again, an error pertaining to superfluous meaning. I am a man of principles, not I am a man of good principles. Let's look at one more. To claim that there is no other alternative to Narendra Modi is to open the door to one person rule. To claim that there is no other alternative to Narendra Modi is to open the door to one person rule. Where is the error? D. What is wrong with D? The door to one person rule. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong in part D, in fact. Right? Open is to open the door to one person rule, which is absolutely fine. But the error is in part B. Why so? Because of the word alternative, right? Alternative means what? Another thing, right? So why do I need this other again, which is again superfluous in meaning? It gives me the same meaning. To claim that there is no alternative itself means, alternative means another way, right? The alternative is for us to use the train if the buses are on strike, which means the other way, the other mode of transportation that you can turn to, right? So again, the error is in part B. We need to delete other, right, which brings in the same meaning as alternative. Alternative being a clue word. Following? Right, so just so that people understand, alternative means another possibility or choice. Yeah, got it? So I don't need other there. That is, so this is again superfluous. Superfluous meaning. Yeah? Okay, so that brings us to the end of the session. I think we've covered all our 23 odd error types, right? Today we focused on the last 8 or 9 error types, and we've closed spot the error topic question type as such. Yeah, so now what you need to do is, all of this are going to be updated in the video library, right? So you can always go back and refresh your basic rules of what do I need to focus on, right? And all of this is pertaining to, most of it is pertaining to basic grammar, but there are other errors that you can learn, like superfluous in nature, or phrases and collocations, right? All these other stuff is also available. So the objective is for us to be familiar with all these error types, so that we know what to look for in the exam when a sentence is there for spot the error, right? And the patterns differ. Nowadays, if you see, instead of one sentence, in a question there are 5 sentences, and one part is highlighted, and they say, hey, the highlighted part is where the error is. But apart from that, there are 2 other parts which also have an error. Identify that error, and there are 5 sentences given instead of one sentence, and we have pairs A, B, C, D, A, C, B, D. Choose the parts that have an error apart from the one that is highlighted. So there are different patterns when it comes to spot the error. Irrespective of what the pattern is, or the complexity or the difficulty level of the question, we need to understand that the concept is still all these basic concepts. So if I'm familiar with all these basic concepts, how many ever sentences are there, I should still be able to identify what the error is and which part has the error. Are you following? So it doesn't matter the complexity or the pattern. The difficulty is only in the pattern, if you ask me. But the type of error that you identify will revolve around predominantly all these 23 error types that we've seen, right? And of course, there are other miscellaneous ones as well. I'm thinking of adding some more under the miscellaneous category, where it doesn't necessarily, I can't categorize them under these 23, but there are those errors as well. Yeah. So my recommendation or suggestion would be that you go back, practice, first go through all of this, understand the concepts, get very familiar. If there is like dangling modifier can be a completely new error type, you have no idea about that error type. Now you know what a dangling modifier is. So go and practice more, so that any error pertaining to dangling modifier you should be able to identify immediately without wasting time. Yeah. So hope all these sessions pertaining to spot the error have cleared a lot of your doubts, confusions that you might have around grammar. If you still continue to face any issues with respect to spot the error, please post the questions in the discussion forum. We will discuss it there, right? We can brainstorm there. and we can learn together to make sure that we absolutely crack this question type. And you know, knowledge is wealth, knowledge is power, right? The more you know, the more easier and confident you are to approach a particular question type. So spot the error should no longer be a challenge. Yeah, that's my wish, and I wish that for you guys. Okay, so thanks Rajashekar for patiently and actively participating in the session. Yeah, take care. If you've applied for the SBI PO, great. If you've applied, if you've registered for the dress rehearsal, awesome. If you have not, today is the last day, you can still do it. I would like for you to go through that real-time experience, you know, which will set you on a positive mode for the actual exam. So you can do that. You can pass the word around to your friends as well, and all the very best to you. Yeah, take care.